The Ladosians only realized their fatal mistake when Samuel's boot crushed the skull of the alien commander, gray brains and green blood splattering the rocky ground. The Ladosian Empire had spent decades expanding their borders and conquering neighboring systems. Their advanced technology and overwhelming military might allowed them to subjugate entire civilizations with ease. Over time, they grew arrogant and complacent, believing themselves invincible. So when the Ladosians encountered humanity, a fledgling species just beginning to explore the stars, they dismissed them as primitives, barely worth acknowledging. They expected the humans to cower and submit like all the others. They were wrong. When Samuel Foster, a young human pilot, was ambushed by Ladosian fighters during a scouting mission near their border, they expected an easy kill. But even as the humans' ship sustained heavy damage, Samuel fought back with a ferocity and skill that caught the Ladosians off guard. He outmaneuvered their craft, blasted several into oblivion, refusing to go down without a fight. Samuel crashed on a desolate moon deep in Ladosian space. Survival seemed unlikely, but Samuel was a survivor. He would complete his mission, no matter the cost. Because unbeknownst to the Ladosians, the data he carried could change everything. The information Samuel had uncovered revealed critical weaknesses in the Ladosian military's encryption protocols. If he could transmit this intelligence back to the Confederation, it would give humanity a fighting chance in the coming war. A war that now seemed inevitable, as the Ladosians' arrogance and aggression reached a boiling point. On that barren moon, as Ladosian forces closed in, Samuel made his stand. Outnumbered 100-1, he nonetheless fought with resourcefulness and grim determination, using the wreckage of his ship to booby-trap the area. When the alien soldiers attacked, dozens were torn apart by improvised mines and jury-rigged sentry guns. And now their commander was dead by Samuel's hand, after foolishly underestimating this lone human survivor. But Samuel was badly wounded, bleeding from a dozen lacerations. He had to get word out before they came again in greater numbers. The survival of the Confederation, of the human race itself, depended on it. As Samuel hunkered down and began broadcasting his distress beacon, he allowed himself a pained smile. The Ladosians were about to learn the hard way. Never mess with humans. Samuel slumped against the wreckage of his ship, blood seeping from numerous wounds. His vision blurred as he fumbled for the emergency beacon. With a grunt of pain, he activated it, praying the Confederation fleet would find him before the Ladosians returned with reinforcements. As he drifted in and out of consciousness, the roar of engines jolted him awake. A sleek, black ship descended from the sky, almost invisible against the starry backdrop. It landed near Samuel's position, and a team of heavily armed operatives quickly disembarked. "Secure the perimeter," ordered Captain Nathaniel Kane, his grizzled features set in a determined expression. "Raven, patch up Foster and extract that data drive. Move." The operatives moved with practiced efficiency, with one, a medic, tending to Samuel's injuries while Raven carefully retrieved the damaged drive from the ship's cockpit. Just as they hauled Samuel aboard the stealth ship, alarms chirped from the sensor arrays. "Sir, we've got incoming Ladosian ships entering orbit," reported the co-pilot. "Get us out of here now," Kane barked. The stealth ship lifted off, its advanced cloaking technology masking it from the Ladosian sensors. They broke atmosphere just as the alien warships descended upon the moon. In the ship's medical bay, Samuel groggily awoke, finding himself face-to-face with Kane. "Welcome back, Foster," the captain said. "That was one hell of a stand you made." Samuel winced as he tried to sit up. "The data. Did you get it?" Kane nodded. "We intercepted your distress call and the covert transmissions. If what you discovered is true, it could change everything. We might have a chance to outmaneuver those Ladosian bastards and stop this war before it starts." Their conversation was interrupted by the urgent blare of alarms. Raven's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, we've been detected. The Ladosians are in pursuit." The ship shuddered as the pilot executed evasive maneuvers, narrowly avoiding the barrage of enemy fire. In the cockpit, Raven's hands flew over the controls, his brow furrowed in concentration. Kane helped Samuel to the bridge where they huddled over a console, working furiously to decrypt the stolen data. Lines of code flashed across the screen as they delved deeper into the Ladosian files. "I don't believe it," Samuel breathed. "It's not just their encryption protocols. There's evidence here that Commander Umbra's attack on me was unsanctioned, a rogue operation." Kane's eyes widened. "If we can prove the Ladosian High Command wasn't behind this, it could fracture their ranks and give us a diplomatic edge." The ship rocked violently as a Ladosian energy beam grazed its hull. Warning lights flashed, and the smell of burnt circuitry filled the air. "We can't take much more of this," Raven yelled from the pilot's seat. Samuel and Kane exchanged a look. "The Ember Nebula," Samuel said. "It's close, and the radiation storms might mask our signature." "It's a huge risk," Kane warned. "The gravitational anomalies could tear us apart." Another blast struck the ship, nearly knocking them off their feet. "It's our only chance," Samuel insisted. Kane nodded grimly. "Raven, set course for the Ember Nebula. Full power to engines and shields." The stealth ship veered sharply, diving toward the swirling, tumultuous clouds of the nebula. The Ladosian ships pursued, their weapons firing relentlessly. As they plunged into the maelstrom, the ship bucked and shuddered, the metal groaning under the strain. Consoles sparked and flickered, the lights dimming as power fluctuated. Raven gripped the controls, his knuckles tightening, fighting to keep the ship steady. Samuel and Kane braced themselves against the bulkheads, watching the view screen as the nebula's violent energies engulfed them. The Ladosian ships faltered, their sensors blinded by the intense radiation. They fell back, unwilling to risk following the humans into the heart of the storm. For several tense minutes, the stealth ship forged ahead, battered by the nebula's fury. The hull creaked ominously, threatening to shatter under the immense pressure. But Raven's skills and the ship's resilient design held fast. With a final, desperate push, they emerged from the nebula's far side, leaving their pursuers behind. Samuel sagged against the console, exhausted and relieved. Kane clapped him on the shoulder. "We're not out of this yet, Foster, but thanks to you, we've got a fighting chance." As the ship raced toward Confederation space, Samuel knew the battle was nowhere near the end. But with the intel they'd gathered, and the bravery of his fellow humans, they could stand against the Ladosian threat. The galaxy would learn the true strength of the human spirit, forged in the fires of adversity and tempered by unwavering determination. The stealth ship touched down on a nondescript asteroid, its cloaking field shimmering as it disengaged. Samuel stumbled out, followed by Kane and the rest of the team. A hidden hangar door slid open, revealing a state-of-the-art facility carved into the rock. Admiral Garrick Vance strode towards them, his weathered face etched with concern. "Report!" he barked. Kane stepped forward. "Sir, we've recovered critical intel on Ladosian vulnerabilities. Foster here made one hell of a stand to get it." In the briefing room, Samuel and Kane laid out their findings. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing the weak points in Ladosian encryption. "This changes everything," Vance muttered, stroking his chin. "We could prevent a war before it starts." As they strategized, alarms blared. A technician burst in. "Sir, distress call from Novus Colony. They're under attack." The room erupted into action. Vance pulled up tactical displays, his face grim. "It's Umbra. The bastard's out for blood." Samuel stepped forward. "Let me lead a strike team. We can hold them off." Vance hesitated, then nodded. "Go. Kane, your team will proceed with the data hub infiltration." Within hours, Samuel's dropship screamed towards Novus Colony. The planet's surface was scarred with plasma burns, Ladosian ships raining fire from above. "Weapons hot!" Samuel shouted as they hit atmosphere. "We're going in hard and fast." The dropship's guns blazed, carving a path through Ladosian fighters. They touched down in the colony's central plaza, now a battlefield strewn with debris and bodies. Samuel rallied the surviving colonists, barking orders and distributing weapons. "We hold the line here. No retreat." Ladosian troops poured into the plaza. Samuel's team met them with a wall of fire, makeshift barricades turning into killing grounds. hours blurred together in a haze of smoke and plasma. Samuel spotted a Ladosian commander, Umbra himself, directing the assault. Their eyes met across the battlefield. Samuel raised his rifle, but Umbra disappeared into the chaos. Meanwhile, light years away, Kane's team slipped into the Ladosian data hub. Raven's fingers flew over holographic interfaces, bypassing firewalls with ease. "I'm in," Raven whispered. "Wait, what the hell is this?" Kane leaned in, his eyes widening. A bioweapon targeted at human DNA? Back on Novus, Samuel found himself face-to-face with Umbra, both their weapons trained on each other. "It's over, Umbra," Samuel panted. "Your own leaders betrayed you. They're developing bioweapons to wipe us out." Umbra's grip on his weapon faltered. "Impossible. We have a code of honor." "See for yourself." Samuel tossed him a data chip. "Your empire's rotting from the inside out." As Umbra processed the information, Confederation reinforcements arrived, their ships filling the sky. The Ladosian forces, seeing they were outgunned, began to withdraw. Umbra lowered his weapon. "If what you say is true, then we have a common enemy." Samuel nodded grimly. "A temporary alliance, then, to save both our peoples." As the dust settled on Novus Colony, Samuel knew this was just the beginning. The real war, against corruption and betrayal, was about to begin. Samuel and Umbra stood in tense silence on the bridge of the stolen Ladosian ship. The stars streaked by as they hurtled through space, each lost in their own thoughts. Kane's voice crackled over the comm, breaking the uneasy quiet. "We've got coordinates for the research facility. Sending them now." Samuel nodded, inputting the data. "Copy that. We're en route." As they approached the remote moon, Samuel turned to Umbra. "You know the layout. How do we get in?" Umbra's mandibles clicked. "There's a maintenance shaft near the southern quadrant. Minimal security." They landed under cover of the moon's perpetual night, creeping towards the looming facility. Samuel's breath caught as they slipped inside. The sterile corridors echoed with distant screams. In the main lab, Samuel's stomach churned. Humans lay strapped to tables, their bodies ravaged by a sickening pathogen. Scientists in hazmat suits scurried about, taking notes. "We need to shut this down," Samuel whispered. Umbra nodded grimly. "Agreed." They moved swiftly, neutralizing guards and scientists alike. Samuel downloaded critical data while Umbra secured samples of the bioweapon. Alarms blared. A computerized voice rang out. "Self-destruct sequence initiated. All personnel evacuate immediately." "Shit," Samuel cursed. "We're cut off." Umbra's eyes narrowed. "I can overload the reactor. Buy us time. You get the prisoners out." As Umbra raced to the reactor core, Samuel led a team to free the captives. They fought through waves of security forces, the rescued humans stumbling weakly behind them. In the chaos, Umbra's voice came over the comm. "Samuel, there's something you should know. I didn't volunteer for this program. They forced me. Threatened to execute my family if I refused." Samuel paused, processing this revelation. "Who's they?" "Radicals within high command. They're pushing for war, no matter the consequences." The facility rocked with explosions as they made their escape. Samuel's team piled into their ship, Umbra joining them at the last second. They blasted off as the moon erupted behind them. Back at the Confederation outpost, they pored over the stolen data. Raven decrypted a series of transmissions, his eyes widening. "You're not going to believe this," he said. "There's a conspiracy. Ladosian warhawks working with crime syndicates. They're profiting from this conflict." Before they could act, alarms blared. A fleet of Ladosian warships dropped out of hyperspace, opening fire on the outpost. "They found us!" Kane shouted. Samuel grabbed a rifle. "Umbra, with me. We need to hold them off." They rallied the outpost's defenders, joined by nearby colonists. The battle raged for hours, a desperate struggle against overwhelming odds. In the thick of the fight, Samuel found himself face-to-face with a stern Ladosian admiral. Plasma bolts flew as they dueled, Samuel's quick reflexes giving him the edge. With a swift move, Samuel disarmed the admiral, knocking him to the ground. He raised his weapon, finger on the trigger. The admiral's eyes met his, filled not with hatred, but doubt. Samuel hesitated, his dedication wavering. "Who are you?" Samuel demanded. "Admiral Zeros," the Ladosian replied, "and you've made a grave mistake." Samuel kept his weapon trained on Zeros, but didn't fire. Something in the admiral's tone gave him pause. There was more to this story, and he intended to find out what. Samuel kept his rifle trained on Admiral Zeros as they fled the outpost. The Ladosian warship's bombardment shook the ground, debris raining down around them. They piled into a waiting shuttle, Umbra at the controls. "Go!" Samuel shouted, shoving Zeros into a seat. The shuttle rocketed away from the crumbling outpost, weaving through enemy fire. Samuel glanced back, watching his home of the past months vanish in a ball of flame. Hours later, in the cramped hold of their commandeered freighter, Samuel faced Zeros. The admiral sat bound to a chair, his posture rigid despite his captivity. "Talk," Samuel demanded. "Who's really behind this war?" Zeros glared, silent. Samuel nodded to Umbra, who stepped forward, mandibles clicking. "Your own people will execute you as a traitor," Umbra hissed, "unless you cooperate." Zeros's facade cracked. "You don't understand. The Cabal, they have eyes and ears everywhere." "What Cabal?" Samuel pressed. "A secret faction within the Imperial Court," Zeros admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "They've been planning this for years. The bioweapons, the false flag attacks, all to provoke a war and wipe out humanity." Samuel exchanged a look with Umbra. "We need proof." Zeros hesitated, then sagged in defeat. "There's a data core in the Imperial Palace on Cranium Prime. It contains everything." Samuel turned to Umbra. "Can we get in?" Umbra's eyes glinted. With the right team, yes. They spent days gathering allies. Kane and Raven joined without hesitation. Others required convincing, but the promise of ending the war swayed even the most reluctant. Their stolen ship dropped out of hyperspace above Cranium Prime. The planet's surface gleamed, a web of massive cities spanning continents. At its heart rose the Imperial Palace, a sprawling fortress of impossible scale. "Damn," Kane muttered. "How do we crack that?" Umbra gestured to a holographic display. "There's a maintenance conduit here, leads straight to the lower levels. If we time it right—" Samuel nodded. "Let's move." Their ship slipped past the orbital defenses, Umbra's codes granting them clearance. They touched down in a restricted landing bay, the team fanning out to secure the area. Samuel led the assault group, creeping through shadowy corridors. Umbra peeled off, heading for the command center. "Remember," Samuel whispered into his comms, "we're here for the data core. Avoid contact if possible." They made it 3 levels before all hell broke loose. A patrol rounded the corner, plasma rifles raised. Samuel dove for cover as energy bolts scorched the air. "So much for stealth," Kane growled, returning fire. They fought their way upward, the palace's labyrinthine layout working to their advantage. But with each passing minute, more guards converged on their position. Samuel's team finally reached the data core chamber, a cavernous room dominated by banks of servers. As Kane worked to download the files, the doors burst open. A flood of heavily armed troops poured in, led by a snarling Ladosian commander. "Traitors!" the commander roared. "You'll pay for this treachery with your lives." Samuel's people scrambled for cover, a desperate firefight erupting, the air filled with plasma bolts and the screams of the wounded. Samuel watched in horror as 2 of his team fell, their bodies smoking. Just as it seemed they would be overwhelmed, Umbra's voice crackled over the comms. "Samuel, I've reached the Imperial High Command. They're reviewing the evidence now." A tremor ran through the palace. Confused shouts echoed from the corridors. The commander's troops hesitated, clearly receiving conflicting orders. Samuel seized the moment. "Now!" he shouted. His remaining fighters surged forward, catching the enemy off guard. In the ensuing chaos, they fought their way to the throne room. Samuel burst through the doors to find Umbra facing off against a group of richly dressed Ladosians. The Cabal finally unmasked. "It's over," Umbra declared, presenting a data pad to the stunned Imperial leadership. "Your crimes are exposed." Before anyone could react, alarms blared. A computerized voice rang out. "Warning, antimatter warhead activation detected. Detonation imminent." Samuel's blood ran cold. He turned to see Admiral Zeros, somehow freed, his hand on a control panel. "If we can't have victory," Zeros snarled, "none of us will." The race to stop Doomsday had begun. The antimatter warhead's countdown ticked inexorably towards zero. Samuel lunged for the control panel, his fingers flying over the interface. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he bypassed security protocols, racing against time. "Got it!" he shouted, slamming his palm on the override. The countdown froze with seconds to spare. Relief washed over the room, but it was short-lived. Admiral Zeros, his face contorted with rage, grabbed a plasma rifle from a fallen guard. "You've ruined everything," he snarled, taking aim at Samuel. Before he could fire, Umbra tackled him from behind. The two Ladosians grappled on the floor, a tangle of limbs and fury. The plasma rifle skittered across the polished surface, coming to rest at Samuel's feet. Samuel scooped up the weapon, training it on the combatants. "Enough!" he roared. Umbra pinned Zeros to the ground, his mandibles clicking in anger. "It's over, traitor!" As Imperial guards rushed in to secure Zeros, alarms blared throughout the palace. Samuel's calm crackled to life, Kane's voice urgent in his ear. "Samuel, we've got a problem. That data core we grabbed, it's got coordinates for another bioweapon facility on Kraxnar." Samuel's blood ran cold. He turned to Umbra, who nodded grimly. "We need to move fast," Umbra said. "My loyalists can provide a distraction while you infiltrate." Hours later, Samuel crouched in the cargo hold of a stealth shuttle, reviewing holographic schematics of the Kraxnar facility with his strike team. The planet's volcanic surface glowed an angry red through the viewports. "Remember," Samuel said, his voice low and intense, "our primary objective is freeing the test subjects. Anything else is secondary." The shuttle touched down under cover of darkness. As they disembarked, the ground shook with distant explosions. Umbra's forces had begun their assault. Samuel led his team through winding tunnels, the air thick with sulfur and ash. They encountered their first resistance at a security checkpoint, cybernetically enhanced Ladosian commandos, their eyes glowing an eerie blue. Plasma bolts filled the air as Samuel's team dove for cover. He popped up, squeezing off precise shots that dropped two commandos. But more poured in, their movements unnaturally fast. "Push forward!" Samuel shouted, tossing a plasma grenade. The explosion rocked the tunnel, clearing a path. They fought their way deeper into the complex, the corridors littered with fallen friends and foes. Samuel's heart pounded as they breached the first experimentation chamber. The sight inside made his stomach churn. Humans lay strapped to tables, their bodies twisted and mutated almost beyond recognition. A Ladosian scientist looked up from his work, eyes wide with surprise. Samuel's team made quick work of the guards, then moved to free the prisoners. As they worked, Samuel downloaded critical data from the lab's computers. "My God," he whispered, scanning the information. "They're trying to weaponize our entire genome." A massive explosion rocked the facility. Samuel's comm crackled. "Samuel!" Umbra's voice was strained. "We can't hold much longer. Their plasma cannons are tearing us apart." Samuel gritted his teeth. "Hang on, I think I've found the shield generator." He led his remaining team members through a maze of corridors, fighting off waves of cyborg commandos. Finally, they reached the generator room. Samuel worked feverishly at the controls while his team held off attackers. With a final keystroke, the generator powered down. The facility shuddered as Umbra's ships began their bombardment. "Let's move!" Samuel shouted. They ran through collapsing tunnels, guiding shell-shocked prisoners to safety. In the chaos of evacuation, A wild-eyed Ladosian scientist cornered Samuel. "You think you've won?" he cackled, revealing a device strapped to his chest. "This warhead will finish what we started." Samuel tackled him, wrestling for control of the device. His team scrambled to assist, working to disarm the warhead as the scientist thrashed and screamed. Just as they thought they'd secured it, the scientist made a final, desperate move. He ruptured the containment system, releasing a cloud of sickly green gas. Samuel stumbled back, coughing and retching. His vision blurred as the gas seeped into his lungs. "Get him to the ship!" someone shouted. Strong arms lifted him, carrying him through fire and smoke. As they raced toward the evacuation point, Samuel felt his body begin to change. His skin burned, muscles twisting beneath the surface. He screamed in agony as they loaded him onto the shuttle. "Hang on, Samuel." Kane's voice seemed distant. "We're getting you help." The journey passed in a haze of pain and horrific transformation. Samuel caught glimpses of his reflection in shiny surfaces, his features warping, skin mottling with strange growths. They burst into a Confederation medical bay, doctors and nurses swarming around him. Through the fog of agony, Samuel heard snatches of urgent conversation. "Nog unstable genetic structure. It can't stop the mutations." Only one option left. He felt himself being lowered into a cold, cylindrical chamber. As the lid began to close, he saw Umbra and Kane standing nearby, their faces etched with worry. "We'll find a cure," Kane promised, his voice thick with emotion. Umbra placed a hand on the chamber. "Rest now, my friend. Your fight is over." As icy mist filled the chamber, Samuel's world faded to black. His last thought before the cryogenic sleep took hold was a prayer that when he woke, there would still be a humanity left to save. Samuel's eyes snapped open, his enhanced vision instantly adapting to the sterile brightness of the medical bay. He gasped, lungs burning as if taking their first breath. Disoriented, he tried to sit up, only to find his limbs responding with alarming speed and strength. The bed frame groaned under his grip, metal bending like putty. What happened to me?" Samuel's voice rasped, unfamiliar even to his own ears. Before he could process his surroundings, alarms blared. The door to his room burst open, and a figure in combat armor rushed in. Samuel's augmented reflexes kicked in before his mind could catch up. He leapt from the bed, crossing the room in a blur of motion. His hand closed around the intruder's throat, lifting them off the ground with inhuman ease. "Samuel, it's me!" The voice, though strained, was unmistakable. Recognition dawned. Samuel released his grip, stumbling backward. "Umbra, I'm sorry. I didn't..." Umbra rubbed his neck, mandibles clicking softly. "It's all right, old friend. Your enhancements are impressive." Samuel looked down at his hands, noticing for the first time the faint metallic sheen beneath his skin. He flexed his fingers, watching as microscopic servos and artificial tendons responded. "What did they do to me?" Umbra approached cautiously. "The Confederation's scientists saved your life, Samuel, but the price was significant." Samuel caught his reflection in a nearby monitor. His face was still recognizably his own, but sharper, more angular. His eyes glowed with a faint blue light. "I'm not human anymore, am I?" "You're still you," Umbra insisted. "But we don't have time for a full explanation. We need to move." As if on cue, the facility rocked with a distant explosion. Umbra tossed Samuel a set of combat fatigues. "Put these on. I'll explain as we go." Minutes later, they raced through the corridors of the medical center. Samuel marveled at how effortlessly his body responded, each movement precise and powerful. As they reached a service elevator, Umbra began filling him in on the chaos that had engulfed the galaxy. "The Empire is tearing itself apart," Umbra explained as they descended. "I've claimed the throne, but loyalists to the old regime resist at every turn. And now, rogue elements have obtained bioweapon data from Kraxnar." Samuel processed the information, his enhanced mind piecing together the implications. "They're continuing the attacks on human worlds." Umbra nodded grimly. The conflict is spiraling out of control. Retaliation against innocent Ladosians, extremists pushing for total war. We need your help, Samuel. Your unique perspective could be the key to ending this madness. The elevator doors opened, revealing a hangar bay. A sleek shuttle waited, its engines already spooling up. Samuel hesitated, looking down at his altered body. I don't know if I can do this, Umbra. I'm not even sure what I am anymore. Umbra placed a hand on Samuel's shoulder. You're the man who risked everything to save both our peoples. That hasn't changed. Samuel took a deep breath, then nodded. All right, where do we start? Umbra's eyes glinted. We've tracked a pirate warlord to Jeru 5. He's auctioning off Kraxonar bioweapon data to the highest bidder. If we can intercept that data, we can prevent countless deaths, Samuel finished. His persistence hardened, pushing aside his doubts. Let's do it. They boarded the shuttle, blasting out of the hangar and into the star-streaked void of hyperspace. As they traveled, Samuel and Umbra formulated their plan. The warlord's mobile fortress station would be heavily guarded, but Samuel's enhanced capabilities opened new possibilities. The station's shielding leaves a small gap near the waste processing units, Samuel noted, studying the holographic schematics. If we can breach the hull there, I can infiltrate through the service tunnels. Umbra nodded approvingly. Your team can create a distraction while you secure the data. Hours later, their shuttle drifted silently toward the massive station. Samuel, clad in a stealth suit, prepared to launch himself into the void. He felt a mix of anticipation and unease at testing the limits of his new body. Remember, Umbra said, your enhancements will protect you from the vacuum, but only for a short time. Get inside quickly. Samuel gave a terse nod, then leapt from the airlock. He soared through space, using precisely calculated bursts from his suit's thrusters. As he neared the hull breach, his enhanced vision picked out the microscopic imperfections in the station's armor. He slipped through the gap with millimeters to spare. Once inside, Samuel moved with preternatural speed and silence through the winding service tunnels. His augmented senses detected the slightest vibrations, allowing him to avoid patrols with ease. As he neared the station's core, he heard the telltale sounds of a firefight erupting. Umbra's distraction was working. Samuel reached the data vault, his fingers flying over the security panel. The encryption was complex, but his cybernetic implants interfaced directly with the system, breaking through firewalls in seconds. He downloaded the bioweapon data, a grim sense of victory washing over him. Suddenly, slow applause echoed through the chamber. Samuel spun, coming face to face with a figure he'd hoped never to see again. Well done, Samuel, Admiral Zero sneered, emerging from the shadows. I must admit your new enhancements are impressive. Samuel's muscles tensed, ready for combat. It's over, Zeros. The data is secure. Zeros laughed, a cold, bitter sound. Oh, I'm afraid it's far from finished. His hand moved to a device on his wrist. In fact, it's about to end, for all of us. Alarms blared throughout the station as Zeros activated the self-destruct sequence. Samuel lunged forward, but Zeros was already retreating through a hidden passage. The floor shook with the first of several explosions. Samuel's enhanced senses detected an anomaly. The explosions were a diversion. His eyes widened as he realized the true threat. The station's engines were overloading, their containment fields about to rupture. If they failed, the nearby neutron star would... No, Samuel whispered, horror dawning as he calculated the consequences. The antimatter release would obliterate not just the station, but all life on Jeru 5 below. Samuel's cybernetically enhanced muscles tensed, his augmented reflexes firing faster than thought. In a blur of motion, he seized Admiral Zeros, fingers digging into the traitor's flesh. Zeros's eyes widened in shock as Samuel dragged him toward the airlock. Alarms blared. The station shuddered violently. Samuel punched the airlock controls, his enhanced strength tearing the panel free. The door hissed open. You're insane! Zeros screamed as Samuel shoved him into the cramped space. We'll both die! Samuel ignored him, slamming the inner door shut. His augmented vision scanned the airlock's systems, interfacing directly. The outer door opened. Vacuum clawed at them. Samuel's lungs burned as his body fought to adapt. He kicked off, propelling them into the void. Behind them, the station's reactor breached. A blinding flash. Samuel's enhanced eyes polarized instantly. The shockwave slammed into them, tumbling them through space. His grip on Zeros never faltered. A shuttle swooped in, bay doors opening. Samuel used the last of his strength to hurl them inside. They crashed to the deck as the doors sealed. "Go!" Samuel croaked, his throat raw. The shuttle's engines roared to life. Through the viewport, Samuel watched in horror as the shockwave tore across Jaru 5's surface. The moon's crust buckled and fractured. "No," he whispered, his enhanced mind calculating the consequences. "We've destabilized the core." Umbra's voice crackled over the comms. "Samuel, what happened?" "No time," Samuel replied, hauling himself to his feet. "We need to warn the Confederation. Jaru 5 is on a collision course with inhabited worlds." The shuttle jumped to hyperspace. Samuel's enhanced senses detected the subtle shift in reality. Moments later, they emerged at the Confederation staging ground. Chaos erupted as they disembarked. Samuel shoved Zeros into the waiting arms of security forces. "Lock him up. We have bigger problems." In the command center, Samuel's fingers flew across holographic displays. Data streamed directly into his cybernetic implants. "The only way to stop this is to collapse Jaru 5's core before impact. We need gravimetric antimatter warheads." Umbra nodded grimly. "I'll coordinate with the Ladosian loyalists. We'll need every ship we can muster." Hours blurred together as the joint fleet assembled. Samuel stood on the bridge of the lead ship, his enhanced senses taking in every detail of the battle plan. "I'll lead the insertion team," he announced. "We'll bore to the core and plant the warheads." The fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Jaru 5. The moon loomed before them, its surface writhing with tectonic instability. Samuel led his team to the dropships. They plunged through Jaru 5's turbulent atmosphere. Samuel's ship shuddered violently as they neared the surface. His enhanced reflexes kept them on course, guiding them to a massive fissure. They touched down hard. Samuel was first out, his armored suit adapting to the hellish conditions. The ground heaved beneath his feet. "Move out!" he shouted. His team followed him into the depths. The tunnels were a nightmare of blistering heat and radiation. Samuel pushed forward, his enhanced body straining against the elements. They encountered pockets of resistance, escaped prisoners and loyalist forces making a last stand. Samuel's augmented combat skills made short work of the opposition, but with each engagement, his team's numbers dwindled. They reached a vast cavern, magma roiling below. Samuel's sensors pinpointed the optimal insertion point for the warheads. Just as they prepared to move, enemy fire erupted from hidden positions. "Ambush!" Samuel roared. He dove for cover, returning fire with inhuman accuracy, but the commandos were relentless. A stray shot struck the warhead carrier. Samuel watched in horror as it tumbled toward the edge. Without hesitation, he sprinted forward, pushing his enhanced body to its limits. Enemy fire tore into him, his armor barely holding. He scooped up the warhead package, momentum carrying him over the precipice. Samuel plummeted toward the magma, clutching his precious cargo. His cybernetic limbs strained as he bounded from rock to rock, each impact threatening to shatter his bones. He reached the insertion point, fingers digging into molten stone. With his last ounce of strength, Samuel activated the warheads. The cavern began to collapse around him. He stumbled toward an emergency pod, every step agony. Samuel fell into the pod, slamming the hatch closed as Jaru 5 tore itself apart. His consciousness faded as the pod ejected into space. He awoke to the stark white of a medical bay. Umbra stood nearby, mandibles clicking with concern. "You did it, Samuel," Umbra said softly. "Billions of lives saved." Samuel tried to sit up, his body protesting. "The conspiracy?" Umbra's eyes hardened. "Still out there, but we'll face it together. human and Ladosian. Samuel nodded, his enhanced mind already formulating plans. The true war was just beginning. Samuel's enhanced body ached as he stood on the bridge of the Confederation flagship. The battle against Jeru 5's destruction had taken its toll, but there was no time to rest. Alarms blared as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. "Multiple systems under attack," a communications officer shouted. "Shipyards at Proxima Centauri, gone. Arcturan supply depots, obliterated. The Sirius comm hub is dark." Umbra's mandibles clicked in agitation. "It's a coordinated strike, but who could have the reach to—" The main view screen flared to life, revealing the stern visage of Grand Admiral Vornus. Samuel's cybernetic eyes narrowed, detecting minute details in the Ladosian's expression, a hint of smug satisfaction beneath the feigned concern. "This is Grand Admiral Vornus," the imposing figure announced. "Our empire is under attack by terrorist elements. I am assuming direct control of all military assets to combat this threat." Samuel's enhanced mind raced, piecing together the implications. He turned to Umbra. "It's him. Vornus is behind all of this." Umbra's eyes widened in shock. "Impossible. Vornus has been a loyal—" "A loyal snake," Samuel interrupted. "Think about it. The precision of these attacks, the timing. He's been playing both sides, weakening us all for his own grab at power." As if in confirmation, the view screen erupted in static. When it cleared, Vornus's mask of civility had vanished, replaced by cold fury. "You've cost me years of careful planning," Vornus snarled. "No matter. My agents have crippled your forces. The Empire will be mine, and I'll crush any who stand in my way." The transmission cut off. Samuel's enhanced hearing picked up the sudden increase in Umbra's heart rate. "We're vulnerable," Umbra said, mandibles twitching. "He'll strike while we're disorganized." Samuel's cybernetic eyes scanned tactical readouts, his augmented brain processing battlefield data at inhuman speeds. "There," he said, pointing to a swirling mass of gravitational distortions. "The Maw Nebula. It's the perfect staging ground for his fleet." Umbra nodded. "But it's a death trap. The gravitational forces alone are navigable with my enhancements," Samuel finished. "We hit him before he's ready. It's our only chance." Hours later, Samuel piloted a stealth craft into the maw of cosmic hell. Swirling eddies of space-time threatened to tear the ship apart. His cybernetic senses worked overtime, detecting minute gravitational fluctuations and adjusting course with inhuman precision. "Contact!" his co-pilot shouted as enemy fire lanced past them. Samuel's enhanced reflexes took over, guiding the ship through a series of impossible maneuvers. They burst from the nebula's outer layer, emerging above a scarred planetoid. Samuel's team deployed, touching down amid a hail of weapons fire. "Secure that ridge!" Samuel ordered, his augmented legs propelling him forward at impossible speeds. Energy bolts sizzled past as he vaulted over enemy positions, cybernetic arms lashing out with deadly accuracy. The ground shook beneath them as Vornus' fleet began to assemble in orbit. Samuel's enhanced vision picked out a strange distortion at the heart of the enemy base. "That's it," he breathed. "An artificial singularity. It's powering their defenses." Samuel sprinted toward the quantum containment field, his body pushing past normal human limits. Warning klaxons blared as he breached the outer perimeter. Crushing gravitational forces threatened to pulverize him as he reached the singularity's core. Samuel's cybernetic fingers danced across holographic controls, interfacing directly with the quantum field. Alarms shrieked. The singularity's containment began to falter. Samuel stumbled back, every movement agony against the intense gravity. A blinding flash erupted overhead. Through the haze, Samuel saw Vornus' ships listing helplessly, their systems fried by the quantum surge. Allied fire rained down, tearing through the defenseless fleet. Samuel's enhanced vision caught a glimpse of a small craft fleeing from Vornus' disintegrating flagship, disappearing into the nebula's depths. Days later, Samuel stood at attention as Umbra addressed the combined Confederation and Ladosian forces. For his unparalleled courage and sacrifice, Umbra intoned, I hereby bestow upon Samuel the title of Crusade Knight, the first human to ever hold this honor. A cheer went up from the assembled troops. Samuel accepted the accolade with a nod, his mind already focused on the challenges ahead. Vornus was still out there, and the true test of their newfound unity was yet to come. Samuel's eyes scanned the vast expanse of space before him, his cybernetic vision piercing the inky blackness. The faint ion trail from Vornus's escape pod flickered at the edge of his enhanced perception. There, he said, pointing to a seemingly empty sector. Vornus is heading into uncharted territory. Umbra clicked his mandibles. The void beyond the Maw Nebula. No one's ever mapped those regions. The Crusader fleet pushed forward, engines straining against the increasing gravitational distortions. Samuel felt the ship shudder beneath his feet as they breached a wall of swirling radiation. Alarms blared. Unknown construct dead ahead, a sensor operator shouted. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a massive structure that defied comprehension. City-sized modules interconnected in impossible geometries, stretching farther than the eye could see. Precursor technology, Umbra breathed, his normally stoic demeanor cracking. I never thought I'd see it with my own eyes. Samuel's enhanced senses detected a faint energy signature emanating from deep within the megastructure. Vornus is in there, he said, and he's activated something. The ship rocked violently as energy beams lanced out from the construct. Ancient defense systems, dormant for millennia, sparked to life. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Umbra barked. Target their weapons emplacements. Samuel sprinted toward the hangar bay, his strike team falling in behind him. We're going in, he said. Umbra, keep them busy out here. Their dropship screamed toward the megastructure's outer hull, weaving through a hail of energy bolts. Samuel's augmented reflexes guided them through impossible gaps in the defensive fire. They touched down hard on the alien surface. Samuel was first out, his armored boots magnetizing to the hull. Breach charges, he ordered. The explosion echoed silently in the vacuum of space. Samuel led the charge into the yawning darkness beyond, his team fanning out behind him. Inside, the laws of physics seemed to bend and twist. Gravity shifted unpredictably, forcing them to adjust with each step. Samuel's enhanced mind struggled to process the alien geometries surrounding them. A high-pitched whine filled the air. Sentinel drones, awakened from eons of slumber, swarmed toward them. Samuel's team opened fire, their weapons barely scratching the ancient alloys. Fall back! Samuel shouted, his cybernetic arms lashing out to crush a drone that got too close. We need to find another way. They retreated deeper into the megastructure, the drones hot on their heels. Samuel's enhanced vision caught sight of a shimmering portal ahead. Through there, he yelled, diving through the energy field. They tumbled into a vast chamber that seemed to contain an entire nebula. Stellar nurseries pulsed with newborn stars, while black holes twisted the very fabric of space around them. What is this place? One of his team members whispered in awe. Samuel's cybernetic eyes darted across the cosmic tableau, his enhanced mind processing the impossible data. It's a simulation, he realized. The precursors were studying the fundamental forces of the universe itself. A familiar energy signature pulsed at the edge of his senses. Vornas, Samuel growled. He's close, and he's found something big. They pressed on, battling through realms of folded space-time and swirling vortexes of raw energy. Each chamber posed new challenges, defying the laws of nature as they knew them. Finally, they emerged into a vast orbital chamber. At its center, a device of terrifying power thrummed with barely contained energy. And there, standing before the precursor superweapon, was Admiral Vornus.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.